Right before we get into the review of the Nikon D7100, I want to remind you guys that if you haven't signed up for the Fronos Photo email list, you can do so by clicking in the orange box over on FronosPhoto.com, putting in your name, email address, and hitting send it. I will send you a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations. Also, don't forget to subscribe right here on YouTube. All right, let's get to the review. Jared Poland, FronosPhoto.com, and I'm here with the review of the Nikon D7100 DSLR camera. It's $11.99 body only, and it's the latest in the range, replacing the Nikon D7000. So this is going to be a pretty long review. I'm going to sit here and give you my opinion of a few different functions and features inside this camera. You're going to see a first-person shooter project video where I took this out to a baseball field. You're also going to get cut in there some issues I may have had or some things that I liked with the camera or just some tips and tricks for when you're using this camera, as well as reviewing photos that I shot at a concert. So I've run this camera through its paces from low light to bright light outside, and I've run some video tests as well. So as with all of my reviews, it's my goal to give you a little bit of my opinion, but give you the tools to make a judgment for yourself whether this camera is for you. So with that said, there are the full res images over on the website, and you'll be able to download some of the raw files as well, so that you can make an informed judgment if you are out there looking for a Nikon D7100. So right off the bat, we know that this is a high megapixel camera with their 24 megapixels. It does 6 frames a second, and that brings up a certain bunch of issues or concerns. Being that it's a large megapixel camera, you are looking at a 30 megabyte raw file on average. Now that's going to vary depending on the situation that you're shooting in. I'm shooting in full RAW, and that's going to give me that 30 megabyte file. Some I've seen are 32 and some are around 29. So that depends on the brightness of a situation or the darkness. That means you're going to take up a lot more space on your computer. But with more than that, this camera shoots 6 frames a second. The problem is you only can shoot for 1 second if you hold the button down for that whole second, because you are going to outrun the buffer within 6 shots. That's right, that means if you shoot 6 seconds for 1 full second with your finger pressed down, your camera will stop after that 6th shot, and it won't take another until the card or the buffer gets the information to the memory card. Now, if you're not a spray and prayer, if you're somebody who takes 2 shots here, 2 shots here, then you're giving the camera enough time to load the information on. I've also found that being that it's 6 frames a second, you don't really need to hold the button down that much, because the action's going to be over before that second is up and you snap off 6 frames. So I know pros that use this in the pit, and they never outrun it because they're shooting smart. They're not just spraying and praying. So that's a recommendation for you guys. The AF points, I don't even remember how many bad boys there are in here, but they are very, very good. The focus points that you can get to individually select, I should look that up real quick. I kind of don't actually remember that. I believe it's 51. Yeah, 51 point AF, just like, well, there's a lot of cameras like my D4 has that, but we're not going to compare that to this. There's 51 points. They go almost edge to edge, so you can get focusing, autofocusing at so many different points. Whereas with the Nikon D600, the points are more focused on the center area. With this D7100, you get a full range of around the whole bat where you can pick up your focusing points, and I individually make changes and select them. So let's talk about the body. The body feels good. There's not much difference here between the D7000 and the D7100. They've now gotten rid of the thumb thing on the back so that you can to go into live view. The live view is now similar to what you see on the D800, the D600, and the D4, as well as the record button. It's a red record button on the very top of the camera. Nikon also does not give you an LCD protection piece of plastic, and I'm okay with that. There's no reason you need to protect this that much. You're not really going to scratch it up. I felt that when you have the plastic, that you end up getting that thing all dirty and scratched up, and you can barely see your LCD screen anyway. These things are very good. They're not going to scratch unless you literally try to scratch it. So that is not a big deal in my opinion. The focus tracking is pretty good. It worked well in continuous focus when I was shooting at the baseball game, whether it was a pitcher or a runner running around the bases. It did very well in low light situations at a concert. And speaking of concert, the high ISO capability is pretty darn good. We're going to see more of that when we look at the images in the computer when we get into the office, and I'll go into more detail about each image and some some more opinions about it. But they looked very good up to 4,000, 6,400 looked good as well. But a lot depends on the situation that you're in as well as the glass that you're using. So I want to keep this moving, and we're going to talk about one of the issues I had was this AFA, which is AF auto. You can sometimes switch between AFA and you want to switch between continuous and single, but there is an extra click in there that I noticed when I was shooting sports. It was AFA, and that was making the selection and choice for me on the autofocus, and I didn't want that. So that was something that I didn't realize till after I stopped shooting pictures, and I talk about that when I was out shooting the baseball game. So quick judgment on the files. The dynamic range is very nice. The shadow to highlight detail is very nice. The shadow detail is what you get when you're in the shadows. Being able to pick up information there is great, and that's what this camera does very well. They've also gotten rid of one of the filters in here, so I didn't see any instances of moraying. I didn't see any moraying in video or in any of the photos that I captured, whether it was baseball or the shot at the zoo or whether it was at the concerts. It was a non-issue. And when I got the image tack sharp, or when it was really, really right and in focus, it was really freaking tack sharp. So the images are sharp, contrasty, vibrant, especially when you edit them. The raw files, really happy with that. What else do I have here? Video samples. The video is perfectly fine. We've used this to shoot the Frono's photo show. You can use it to do quite a lot of video. You're going to get your 20 minutes out of that. You have your 2 memory card options. You can write stills to one, video to the other. You can have it shoot stills to one and stills to the other, as in a redundancy. My personal preference is because they give you 2 slots, put 2 SD cards in here, say 2 16 gigs or 2 32 gigs, and have them copy the raw files from one to the other so that if one card fails, you have a backup right there. That is a great option to have. The battery life is very good. All of the buttons seem to be in the right place. It's the same as just about any other Nikon. So Nikon did a great job there. And the camera, all in all, is very, very good for its $1,199 price range. But a lot of people sit there and say, well, why would I get this over the D600, or why don't I get this over the D600? There is a difference between when you go into a full frame camera and then the lower end, not lower end, but a middle of the road 1199 DX body. A lot has to do with the buffer size, build quality. As you get into the proer bodies, that's where you get into better build quality, better processors inside, better weather sealing. But they're just, there are differences. You're going to pay for that. But for $11.99, this is a solid offering, body only. Pick up some good glass for it, and you're going to be extremely, extremely happy. So really, that is just a quick look at the outside of the camera, some quick thoughts that I have. Now I want to take you guys into the office, sit at the computer, analyze these photos with you so that we can then say, the final thoughts is if this is a buy or a not buy. So let's get into the office right now, and we'll see you there in a quick second. So here we are out at the baseball field to test out the Nikon D7100. The lenses that I'm going to use, I have a 70 to 200 2.8, the 14 to 24, the 24 to 70, also the 300 2.8. Ideally, I would have liked to have had a 55 to 300 or some kind of kit lens, maybe a 70 to 300 Nikon, but I don't have any of those right now, so I'm using this type of lens. What am I looking for out of this camera? How it autofocuses with the base runners, how many shots you can get before you outrun the buffer, and just overall image quality. I've done some wider shots before the game. What I'm going to do is shoot the pitcher through the fence here, go get some batter images from the sides as well, and then we'll see if we get some action shots, which are not the easiest when it comes to baseball, but we will see what we can get and then run through its paces, and then talk to you again and see what we're thinking as the game progresses. So we'll see you there. Be right back. So my first observation is how many frames you can shoot off before you outrun the buffer. Well, it's 6. That's not a lot. There's a difference between the D7100 and when you get into something like the D600. It's a larger buffer when you get into more pro cameras. So that's what one of the limitations of the D7100 is. You only get 6 frames in a row before you have to wait until the files go from the camera's buffer into the memory card. Now I'm using a faster memory card, a class 10 SD card, 32 gigabytes, but that doesn't matter. If the buffer in the camera isn't fast to write to the card, then that's what you're limited to. So you're limited to 6 frames a second. Now you really shouldn't have to outrun that too often. I mean, if it doesn't shoot that fast. It's not shooting like 10 frames a second. It's just not. It's doing a couple a second, and you shouldn't really outrun it. You should do quick bursts. If you do 2 or 3, and you wait a second or 2, then you get another 2 or 3 because the information writes to the card. So that's one of the things to watch out for. It's not the fastest buffering camera, and that's just one observation. So just notice something that doesn't happen with some of the other cameras. There's an AFA, AFC, and AFS. So I like to just change around from AF single focus to AF continuous focus, probably 9-point dynamic. But what I noticed is I was missing some pictures. They were out of focus because it switched to continuous AFA, which is the autofocus, the thing that I don't want to use. I want to select my focusing points. And so now that I'm aware of that, I'm going to have to pay attention to make sure that I'm not on AFA continuous when I am shooting these photos.
Stewie was there for you, Mr. Sheffield. He did.
Now pitching for Northampton, number 10, Patrick Sheffy. Batting for Warwick, number 36, Connor McEwen.
At least it's not hot out today.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, nice pitch. 1-1. Nice pitch, Pat. Hey, head on it, head on it. Right. Good job, Connor. Good job, kid.
So here's a quick tip for you. I've resorted back to trying to capture the moment. That's what you're supposed to do. Instead of spraying and praying, holding the shutter button down, hoping that you get the guy swinging and the ball right where it's supposed to be, you resort to trying to get your timing right. Because if you let the camera try to get those frames per second, being that it's so slow, you're not going to get the pitch. You're not going to get the batter swinging and hitting the ball. So you have to try and do that where you're anticipating the action, you press the shutter button when it's time, and you get back to that. So that's just a little observation, a little quick tip, is with cameras like this, don't sit there and try to hold the shutter button down. That's not going to get you the image. Anticipate the action, capture the moment, and move on from there.
Out of the box. Out of the box. Come on, Mike. 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 Go, 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 go. Go, 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 go. Gotta get down. Gotta get down. Come on, come on. Go, 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 go. Down, 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 down. Run it. All right, let's go. We're off.
So we just finished up the game here, shooting with the D7100. I'll have my full-on review coming up after we get back to the loft. But it's very interesting. I mean, it handles very well. The image quality looks fine right here on the back of the screen. I'd like to see it in the computer. The camera, the focus is quick. The shooting, we know that you can outrun the buffer. If you shoot 6 frames really quick in succession, then you're going to outrun the buffer and you're not even going to be able to shoot pictures. It locks up at that point. So you don't want to get that far into it if you're going to shoot some buttons. You could cross, Dad. I'm recording. It's all good. Say hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Dad. So, yeah.
I'm only umping today.
Yeah. So we went for some action shots. We got the vertical shots of the guys trying to hit the ball. Like I said, you want to try not to overshoot. You don't want to spray and pray. You want to try and anticipate the moment so that you can capture the ball on the bat or the pitcher throwing the ball where it's just coming out of his hand. Because if you try to do that 4 or 5 frames a second thing, you may not be able to capture it that easy because it doesn't always work. Some things to be careful about is when you transfer, go from AF continuous to AF single back to continuous. If you go on the same way on the dial, you're going to see AFA. That's the auto mode. I do not like that because I want to select the point that I want to focus in. That's what I want to do. Another thing you want to be careful about is if you're hitting the zoom in button and you're trying to zoom in and you accidentally hit it's the quality button as well, and you get off a raw, you may not be happy. So I'm not a big fan of that. But other than that, the camera works very well. Very happy with the results so far. Let's take it back to the loft and see how the results actually look. So now we're back in the loft and it's time to take a look at the 3 photo shoots that I captured with the Nikon D7100. As you saw, I went out and shot a baseball game. Hope you enjoyed that first-person shooter aspect with the pictures coming up. Most of the pictures that pop up on the screen, we're going to take a look in more closer detail on the computer. Then I did some low-light shooting, which really challenges a camera. When I shot a concert, we're going to take a look at those photos, followed by ones at the zoo, because I'd used it in a general situation where I just went out and about with Meg and took pictures at the zoo of animals. So let's move into these images. And we have the baseball game. So before the game started, I went out there onto the field. They were doing the national anthem, and I took a picture with the 14mm. Everything looks good. The black and white looks solid. The only thing that concerns me is the back focus. I switched into single focus, and I'm not sure how the back focus would have changed. I'm not sure how I would have gotten back focus when I was focusing on the players right here. But other than that, the tones and everything look fine. I'm going to have to look into the lenses again for that. The color tones, great blues up here, all the way to the dirt looks exactly like it did. The grass looks great. The players look good. It's a nice shot with a 14mm. And what I shot at a 14mm at 200 ISO. But let me remind you guys of something. All of these files are going to be available full res JPEGs of every file we're talking about you can find on the review over on the website, and you'll be able to download some of the raw files, which I'll save as DNGs so that anybody can open them. But remember, when anybody's doing a review, or there's people that always say, hey, why did you make corrections to images when you were reviewing them? Well, I do whatever I normally would have done on a photo shoot, which is edit my files, because you have to tweak those raw files to get those nice colors. That's what you're going for. You don't want to just take the raw data and not touch it. But with the raw files being available for download, you can look at them yourself and determine what you think about it, because that's what this review is about, giving you guys tools to make decisions. Let's blow through this real quick. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images I went through right there. That's not motor driving pretty much. Actually, I'm testing out the camera. This is fine, but let's take a look at a shot like, where do we want to go? Well, we'll start with this. The shadow area in the face. This is great detail. You can see the hairs on the back of his neck. You can see his hair right here coming down his face, and there's the shadows and the eyes. Having details in the shadow area is extremely important, and that is what this camera is able to capture. That's where cameras are going in the future. Sure, they can capture low light situations very well, but the dynamic range continues to get better until it's at a point where you have like 50 stops of dynamic range where HDRs won't even be necessary, because what you're capturing from the camera is great shadow area and great highlight area. So let me just say that I was shooting in manual exposure here. If I wasn't in manual, then I probably wouldn't have been able to get a nice exposure in the kid's face to get the image to where I wanted it. If I was in the full matrix, it probably would have been close, but I probably would have had too much dark area in the kid's face because the scene was overwhelmed by the sun, which was about 10 in the morning, and the sun was at the right-hander's back. If it was a left-hander, then we would have been able to shoot on the other side of the field and get a really solid image. So let's keep going through here, but very happy with the separation and the color that we got out of this. This is a nice baseball shot. Full frame vertical, not cropped at all. You got the fingers over here to the hands, to the shadow. Everything looks good. And then I missed the focus shift here. I don't know if I went to single focus, and I should have been on continuous to track him, but he moved out in this one out of focus. This looks good as well. Very happy with how this held up, and I believe the shadows are pumped all the way up. I wanted to show you guys, like, that's without the shadows all the way down. This is with it zeroed out. But then when you just pump them in there, it's not really hurting the image very much. You would think, you know, you have to change the exposure, and that's going to do that to it, and then, yeah, the face looks fine. But here, his hat is in a shadow area, and this looks perfectly fine to me. And remember, you're going to see some noise. You're going to see some grain, even at 400 ISO when you make corrections to an image, you know, or when you zoom in this far. When you're zoomed in at 1:1 on a 24 megapixel camera, especially when he's not filling the frame with his head, you're going to see some noise, but that's normal. If you were going to see this noise in a print, it would have to be really, really huge, and you'd have to study it right up close. Just a shot of the catcher, just showing you that you fill the frame here. Don't forget that any lens that you put on it, any lens that you put on this camera is multiplied by 1.5. You also have the option to go to crop mode 1.3 times, which crops it down from 24 megapixels to a smaller size, but also it's not DX anymore. It's now 1.3 crop mode, so your area of shooting gets even smaller. So I don't always recommend doing that. If you need more bang for your buck, I'm not a fan of cropping, but I'd rather leave it in DX and then crop it later than have to worry about if I cut somebody's head off in the other way. So moving on. All right, this is good. We've got the player right here, zooming in to see his face. Look how sharp that is. Really sharp. What am I using? 70 to 200 at 195 millimeters. The colors look great. The tones in the face look great. Remember, there's no low-pass filter on this camera, and some of the issues people thought may happen is moiraying, which is, you don't want that to happen, but I don't see it at all. Don't even think about it, and it's resulting in much sharper images. All right, boom. Went and did a black and white, moved over to the angle a little more. Really sharp. And this is a shadow area again. There we go. It's now there. You can see the eyelashes nice and sharp. This is where I focused. I was on single focus, not continuous. Looks good at 400 ISO. Really nice. The batter, I guess he came up next. This is great. 1/5000th of a second. I'm sure people are going to say, well, why were you at ISO 400 and 1/5000th of a second? Well, the reason is I want to freeze the action. I know the camera will go to 1/8000th of a second. I just wanted a solid, crisp image where I tried to capture the ball. I didn't do that all day. I probably would have been better trying to capture the pictures doing that, but I didn't because I wanted to keep the ISO down just to show you. But this is a solid, solid image. This looks great. The colors, the tones, the moment captured, this is great filling the frame. Really like that shot. Then we got more of the picture right here. Not a big fan of this image too much, but I think it works out pretty well. Better from the side. You can see even with the light basically straight up in the air, we're moving on about 11 o'clock here. This is solid. He's frozen there. He's nice and sharp. Boom. All the way down here. You can see the Nike swoosh. Nice shadow. Everything looks great. Look how sharp that stuff is. Nice image right there. I like the colors, like the tones. Another one right here with the shadow and everything. This is nice. I like the exposure here. I like what we've got going on. The camera's holding up very well. The focus is working very well. Then broke out to 302.8 to try to shoot a little tighter. Just want to check timing, 8 minutes, all right. That looks fine. Boom, again. This was on continuous focus, and that worked very well. Just trying to get a tighter shot. Then moved in here to get the coach just to shoot with the 300. Look at the tack sharpness of the eye. When you are on with your focus, with pretty much with any camera, when you're on with your focus and your exposures, your images are going to look fantastic. And in this case, the eye right where we want it is really sharp. So that's a great job with the 51-point autofocus. getting that right on. The colors look good, the shadow area looks good, the bokeh is great, and that's more of the lens. But take a look here. We've got, look at the reflection. Look how sharp the reflection is in the field. That is great. The colors and everything look awesome. From the oranges to the blues to the background areas, these are looking very nice. Freezing the motion here. Would have liked to have a faster shutter speed. I was at 640 ISO, by the way. Let's take a look in a little bit closer. Still looks fine to me. Yeah, you can see that he just hit the ball, I believe, because the ball is going, it looks like it's going that way. Just a player stagnant standing there. Then we'll get to some running shots. These are nice shots. The colors look, I'm really happy with how the colors boomify. Even though I pumped them up, that's great that the file allows you to do that. So then this is tracking him running. That looks great, filling the frame, tracking him running. Nice job. I know I'm telling myself nice job. There he goes running again. Look at that. Running towards us is very hard for the autofocus system to accomplish. But look at this image. Look how sharp that is with him running towards me. So there with the autofocus of the subject coming right towards me, it tracked him very well in continuous focus, in dynamic focus, 9-point dynamic focus is what I like to use. That's my personal choice. You can use the single point, you can use the 9-point, 21-point, and 51-point. I prefer 9. It's one dot with the 8 focusing points around it. It's going to help you track them as they're coming towards you. That's a good determining factor on how the autofocus works in the camera. We got another picture, more of the same, another batter. This is filled, no cropping whatsoever, 400 ISO. Just action shots, and now it's time to move on to the concerts. Let's take a look. We're at 2500 ISO. This looks solid. The skin tones look really nice. The colors look really nice. Again, manually focusing. Take a look at the colors we have in the background. We can see this is sharp with the lenses. Yes, there's some noise, but that's normal. This isn't bad at all. 2500 ISO, 1,000th of a second. What else? F4 to give myself more range. So I'm pushing the camera here. This is one of the guys in the pit, a black and white. You can see that this looks good right here on Steve. Then we've got 21 pilots. This looks good, nice and sharp, nice tones, nice colors. Everything looks nice there. I'll put these up. I'll put that up as a raw file. So I'm very happy with the low light capability. It feels good. The focusing is another thing to worry about in low light situations. The focus didn't have a problem. Yeah, you know, it's pretty bright, 2500 ISO. I probably could, well, I could have shot at a slower ISO like 1000 or something like that, but I wanted the faster shutter speeds to give myself a chance at freezing action better for subjects that are moving. So very happy with the results so far. Now with 2500 ISO, f3.2. This is the Muddy Muddy Ballstones guy. Not bad. Again, manually focusing. By the way, if you want to pick up the Fronos Photo, let's see, what is it called? If you haven't signed up for the email list, you can do so over on the website. Look for the orange box. I give you a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations. It's really a concert guide, so you can sign up for free. Pick that thing up. You saw that at the beginning. But yeah, you can get tips for how I do stuff like this. Colors look good. Tones look good. Grains look good. Black and white looks fantastic. This is very reminiscent of what film looks like, so I'm really happy with that. I like these guys in the background. Looks good. Feels good. The colors are good. Yeah, check out the sharpness of this guy. What are they called? I forget what. The Silver Sun pickups. Nice, sharp, right on the eyes where I'm focused. Again, boom. Look at that. Really nice right there. Nice black and white. And sure, we're at 2500 ISO. This is grain. I am not using any noise reduction at all, but remember you are zoomed in 1:1. Look up here in the corner of the screen. That is a huge portion of a crop that you're looking at. Sure, there is some noise and grain, but this is normal. This is fine. There is nothing wrong with this at all. You're going to see that in every camera, including the D4. Nice colors, nice tones. We've got my favorite shot of the whole thing of Haley from Paramore. She did this whole thing, and the colors are spectacular. The tones are great. Really happy with this shot. The camera works very, very fast. And like I didn't say this earlier, but yeah, I get 6 frames a second, and you can only shoot 6 when you're using 14-bit RAW files. Instead of the 12, I use the 14-bit lossless So it's the raw, compressed, lossless. That's what the camera gives me an option. Each file is about 30 megabytes, but I rather have the 14-bit. I want all of that data, so I can sacrifice shooting holding the button down and shooting 12 shots in a row, because you don't really need that at 6 frames a second. I'm very, very happy with these shots. Colors, look at the nice orange hair. Look at this. This is perfectly good. Like what's going on here. Passion pit, very hard to get the guy to stand still and get some nice shots, but the black and white tones are really, really nice. Let's go through this a little quicker. We've got Phoenix. Phoenix doesn't move on stage at all, so that gives you the ability to shoot like this, and they had terrible lighting. We went up to 3200 ISO, 3/20th of a second. This still looks good. Very happy with the shadow. Look at the shadow area. You still pick up the eyes, and everything else looks fine. Moving out to the zoo, we've got penguins. It's going to be perfectly fine out here. The focusing and everything worked well. We've got the zebra. We've got the giraffe. We've got a bird indoor situation, 1600 ISO. Here it is. Again, look at the large crop at 1:1. That's filling the frame. That's 1:1. I like looking at 1:1 for sharpness. Everything looks really nice. All right. And how do I get back? All right, I got to hit fit, right? Then that should zoom in 1:1. Yep. Moving on. Another bird. Nice colors. Then you got these monkeys sitting around. This is through glass, by the way. So there you go, them looking up at the light. Now we've got the human beings that the silverback is looking at, because we reversed it. It's like, hey, I'm going to stare at these human beings. I am a silverback. And that's just pretty cool that he's just standing up there looking. I thought he was maybe going to pee on the glass, but he didn't. I just think it's really cool that he's watching them. I wanted to do this to see how sharp this is. Look at the hide right here. It looks really good. It's really, really sharp. Nice colors. We got poop, rhino, and that's it for that. So we got the rhinos. We got a bunch of good stuff here. I didn't cut in any of the videos. Maybe I'll put them in somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to put that yet. But honestly, this camera works fantastically well. For $11.99, what this camera offers is so much more than, say, what my D2H offered me in 2004. Obviously, that's understandable that one's 10 years newer than the other, but just think of how quick technology is moving. What you're able to do in this camera is so great that it's like having a professional body just in a $11.99 type unit. Now, it's not a pro body because it doesn't have an expandable. You can put a grip on it. The grip isn't built in. You can get a grip. They're very expensive, $300 or whatever. It's way too expensive for a grip for this. Nikon really needs to work on that. It's a very good starting camera. If you're looking for your very first camera, this is a great one to start with. If you can afford the $11.99, plus invest in some good glass. Glass. Invest money in glass, not in bodies. But this is a very nice body, very happy with the results. I know professionals that use this as a backup just to have another camera in the bag and use it on full shoots. One of the Getty photographers that I know that we've interviewed on Raw Talk shoots with a D7100 in the pit and is very, very happy with the results. And Getty doesn't question the quality of the images because they are really solid. So if pros are using this and the focus is great and the low light capability is great, 6400 ISO without a problem, very, very nice results, and that is where we're going to leave this review of the Nikon D7100. I highly recommend it for anybody just getting started out who's looking for their very first camera. Again, pick up the camera and then look into good glass. Learn the basics. Pick up my Fronos Photo Beginner Guide to getting out of auto. That's going to give you a jump start on your photography career, to give you the very basics to start with so that you're not wasting a year of your time in auto mode and not learning how to take full control of your camera. It's going to be perfect for a camera like this. So check out allenscamera.com if you'd like to pick up a D7100 or any other Nikon cameras. They have them all there. Give them a call. They're a mom and pop store that supports me and I support them. And that is really it. So thank you guys who stuck around to the very end of this video. I really appreciate it. And for any other questions, just drop me a line. Jared Polin, FronosPhoto.com. See ya.